In New Mexico, a family dashes across the arid desert, accompanied by a smuggler who brandishes his firearm, demanding payment for their border passage. Suddenly, a distant silhouette appears, initially assumed to be Border Patrol. However, the figure swiftly descends the hill, pouncing on the man to satiate its hunger. This phenomenon commenced 2 days prior at a nearby military base. Dr. Snowman conducts porcine experiments when Commander Murdoch interrupts, stressing the urgency of timely results due to an impending visit. Meanwhile, in a Mexican prison, inmate Alonzo receives a surprising birthday serenade and cake, coupled with a farewell as he faces extradition. After delivering a speech, Alonso observes a new guard and initiates a conversation, offering a drink and playfully teasing the guard's suspicious military background. Outside, reporter Lilia covers Alonso's extradition, spotlighting him as Mexico's most notorious dealer. Captured 4 years prior while dining at an upscale restaurant, Alonzo allegedly managed his illicit empire from within the prison to thwart the rival cartel, the Apostles. His wife succumbed to a rare illness, and details about their lone child remain elusive. Alonso's confinement in this particular prison is no coincidence, as it boasts an impeccable record of no escapes. In a restroom, agents Becerril and Cruz engage in clandestine flirtation, conscious of the potential consequences if caught. Later, they rejoin their team, with Becerril reminding them of their imminent transport of a highly dangerous criminal. Simultaneously, 2 DEA agents in Texas prepare to retrieve Alonzo. Meanwhile, at the Paradise Rehab Center in New Mexico, Dr. Henry informs a patient of upcoming extensive renovations necessitating premises evacuation. At that moment, he receives a call from his cousin Alonso, who blasts the radio to maintain a facade against potential police suspicion. Henry assures Alonso of a prepared refuge and learns that Alonso's vacation is commencing today. In due course, a senator arrives at the military base and engages with Snowman, who elucidates the nature of his ongoing experiments. He harnesses the insensitivity of insects to pain to develop a serum intended to create super soldiers. To illustrate, he administers the serum to a pig, resulting in the unfortunate creature vomiting and perishing. The senator, incensed at Murdoch's perceived time wasting, grants a mere week to deliver results, or the program faces termination. Post her departure, Murdoch berates Snowman, warning of potential blacklisting unless he resolves the predicament. Subsequently, Snowman injects another pig, prompting it to swiftly lose consciousness. Sergeant Valencia mistakenly believes it's still alive, but Murdoch dismissively discards it, instructing her to remove all deceased animals. After his exit, Snowman retrieves the pig and isolates it from the others, administering a double dose. Meanwhile, in the desert, Valencia disposes of deceased pigs and stumbles upon one surprisingly alive, setting it free. Concurrently, Lilia dons a disguise, equipping herself with a camera and a toy gun. She infiltrates the prison and, while awaiting her turn in the visitor line, discreetly places the toy gun into another visitor's bag. She then raises a false alarm, accusing the individual of being armed. Amidst the ensuing panic and police response, she covertly secures a visitor's pass and gains entry, retaining the camera. Lilia shadows fellow female visitors into the conjugal visitation area, as security cameras across the prison are deactivated upon receiving a message. The new guard enters the cell and fires at the bed, but it turns out to be a decoy. Alonzo had anticipated this move, launching a surprise attack from behind. A fierce brawl ensues, with Alonso eventually overpowering the guard and using his firearm to end his life. Escaping through a concealed hole beneath the toilet, Alonso eludes capture when special agents arrive, leaving only the guard's lifeless body behind. Lilia initially intends to interview Alonso, but instead captures the unfolding prison alarm over the escaped inmate. Underground, Alonso reunites with a gang member and together, they flee on bikes. In the desert, a famished stray dog approaches a deceased pig for sustenance, but to everyone's shock, the pig's eerie eyes snap open. At that moment, the other pigs reveal their unnatural state and aggressively descend upon the dog, brutally feeding on it. Having concluded their gruesome feast, they catch wind of another potential prey and swiftly navigate a drainage tunnel. Within the prison, Becerril inquires Contreras regarding the new guard, met with feigned ignorance. Suspicion arises when Becerril notices an unusually pristine toilet and uncovers a concealed tunnel beneath. He claims jurisdiction over the case, intimidating Contreras into preventing anyone from trailing his team. Unbeknownst to them, Lilia records this encounter, but her camera is confiscated by vigilant guards. Contreras contemplates arresting Lilia, but she cunningly reminds him that her arrest would garner widespread media attention, thrusting him into the viral spotlight. Consequently, she is released. Meanwhile, Becerril and his team commence their tunnel investigation, while the DEA becomes aware of the escape through news reports, prompting them to join the manhunt. Later, Alonso rendezvous with his former gang, surmising that the guards' attempt on their lives likely stemmed from the apostles. He reunites with his estranged son Lucas, who rebuffs his father's attempt at an embrace, chastising him for abandonment. After rigging the room with explosives, the gang departs, leaving the area vacant by the time Becerril's team arrives. As they inspect the surroundings, the explosives detonate, causing the room to collapse. Seconds later, they regain consciousness, confirming their survival, albeit with some injuries. It is then that the pigs arrive, pouncing on the agents, who respond with gunfire. Despite their efforts, the pigs reach them, beginning a gruesome feeding frenzy. The agents' bodies gradually succumb, assuming the grotesque appearance of the pigs. Back in the laboratory, Snowman combines the serum with his recreational substance and administers it to a pig, resulting in the pig's demise. However, in Snowman's absence, the pig unexpectedly revives, exhibiting erratic behavior. It violently shakes its cage until it breaks free and proceeds to slaughter the other pigs. Upon discovering the carnage, Snowman urgently seeks out Murdoch to announce his partial success, recognizing the necessity of refining the serum to eliminate cannibalistic tendencies. He also requests access to the discarded pigs, confident they remain alive. Beyond the prison walls, Lilia continues her coverage of the escape and sends a message to Alonzo, expressing her willingness to hear his side of the story. Meanwhile, Alonso and his gang progress through a tunnel, accompanied by Lucas. He becomes infuriated when his father declines to instruct him on firearm usage. Eventually, they locate a staircase leading them through an opening into the rehabilitation center on the American side, courtesy of Henry's sheltering offer. However, Lucas is far from content. A miscalculation in his age results in a room that feels overly juvenile, and he resents being amidst a remote locale surrounded by elderly individuals. His longing is to return to his previous school and engage in activities with his friends. Moments later, the unconscious soldiers underground regain consciousness, metamorphosing into zombies. Although they retain limited speech capability, they repeatedly utter Alonso's name while clawing their way out of the tunnel. They set off across the desert in search of him, encountering a gate that they forcibly bend with their newfound strength. Upon encountering a snake, they promptly kill and consume it. Nearby, Snowman and Valencia search for the pigs and discover the deceased dog. In that instant, a snarling pig emerges from the tunnel, its face smeared with blood. Valencia contemplates shooting it, but Snowman intervenes. They cautiously approach the creature, which suddenly lunges for an attack, narrowly caught by Valencia just in time. Later in the evening, the Secretary of State addresses the press, with Lilia inquiring about rumors regarding inside assistance for Alonso's escape. The Secretary pledges repercussions if the allegations prove accurate. Contreras watches nervously on television and receives a call from the Apostle's prophet, who grants him 48 hours to rectify his blunder. The subsequent day, Lucas deceives Dog by falsely claiming that his father approves of him learning to shoot, prompting Dog to provide instruction. Alonso discovers this and decides to permit it, even commending Lucas for his marksmanship. Subsequently, Alonso instructs his men to remain vigilant for a potential assault, harboring suspicions of an embedded traitor among them. Meanwhile, within a Texas prison, an inmate known as El Romeo voices grievances about the food and insults a guard. However, before the situation escalates, another guard announces Romeo's visitor, Joel from the DEA. Joel is aware of Romeo's past friendship with Alonso, attributing Romeo's incarceration to him. Having nearly apprehended Alonso once before, but losing him, Joel is now driven by an intense determination to prevail in the hunt. He presents Romeo with a proposition: freedom in exchange for assistance in locating Alonzo, provided Romeo is granted the privilege of ultimately exacting vengeance upon Alonso. Romeo consents to the deal, with conditions. Later, on the brink of crossing the border, Romeo shares anecdotes from his previous escapades with Alonso. As he learns more about Alonso's patterns, Joel surmises that Alonso must be in the USA, not Mexico, prompting him to turn his truck around. In the afternoon, Lilia is escorted to meet Contreras, who extends a 2 million peso offer to enlist her aid in tracking down Alonso. Initially resistant, Lilia capitulates when Contreras threatens to tarnish her reputation and have her arrested. She agrees on the condition of securing exclusive coverage of Alonzo's extradition. They seal the deal with a handshake, but Contreras' attempted advances are rebuffed by Lilia, who swiftly departs. Moments later, an enigmatic vehicle begins tailing her. Lilia takes notice and decides to take refuge in a pool, endeavoring to elude the pursuer by slipping into the women's changing room. The pursuer follows her inside and reveals his badge, but a woman intervenes, instructing him to leave. Meanwhile, at the base, Valencia returns with the zombie pig in a cage. Another soldier approaches for a closer inspection, disregarding Valencia's warnings and extending his finger into the cage, leading to a bite. Valencia escorts him to Snowman, who instructs her and his assistant to secure him to a table without touching the wound. The infected soldier convulses briefly before succumbing, but in a matter of seconds, he reanimates as a zombie. Simultaneously, Alonzo and his group watch another video message from Lilia, wherein she seeks an interview and guarantees Alonso's safety. Lucas expresses belief in her sincerity, prompting Alonso to call Lilia and agree to the interview. Following the call, Alonso surprises Lucas with his very own drone. Lucas is thrilled, even though his father had previously gifted him one and vowed not to let it cross the fence. However, curiosity gets the best of Lucas, leading him to send the drone out anyway. After losing the signal, he leaves the center to locate the drone. When he regains visual contact, Lucas witnesses the zombified soldiers running amok. Speaking of the zombies, they have encountered the group from the outset, assaulting each member to kill and feed. As Cruz approaches a pregnant woman, she hesitates, gently touching her belly, only to abruptly take her life. Simultaneously, No Balls departs from the center to dispatch a messenger bird. However, Alonzo catches him in the act and fires a shot, killing the bird in the process. Alonso retrieves the message, confirming No Balls' association with the apostles. Terrified, No Balls attempts to flee, with Alonzo in pursuit, exchanging gunfire. Eventually, No Balls manages to elude Alonzo, and the gang, alerted by the gunshots, arrives to offer assistance. Alonzo is urged to allow them to pursue No Balls while he returns to his son. Meanwhile, Dog realizes that Lucas is missing and embarks on a search for him. Upon Alonso's return, he discovers the house empty, prompting him to use binoculars to locate Dog and set out after him. Lucas encounters the transformed smuggler from a distance and initiates conversation, but when he senses the man's eerie nature, Lucas hurls a rock at him. This provokes the zombie, and he gives chase. Just as he closes in on the boy, Dog intervenes, shooting the smuggler. Alonzo hears the shots and rushes in that direction. The wounded smuggler, however, recovers and attacks Dog. A fierce battle ensues, resulting in Dog being bitten. Lucas attempts to divert the zombie with a large rock, allowing Dog to dispatch him with his knife. The dog instructs Lucas to flee to avoid witnessing his transformation. The gang locates No Balls hiding among the trees and opens fire, but No Balls proves agile, evading their pursuit. Ultimately, he returns to the center and seeks escape through the tunnel. Pursued by a gang member, No Balls detects the approach and lays in wait, launching a surprise attack that ends in his favor. After a strenuous struggle, No Balls kills his pursuer and continues onward. Minutes later, he encounters the transformed soldiers and opens fire, but his aim falters, and the zombies converge upon him. Alonzo, at long last, reunites with his son, who implores him to see Dog. Believing Dog to be deceased, Lucas approaches to close his eyes, only for Dog to revive and attack. Alonso reacts swiftly, delivering fatal shots and labeling him a traitor. Tearfully, Lucas clarifies the truth, but Alonso remains unconvinced. They then reconnect with the gang and return home, oblivious to Cruz watching from a distance. Inside the lab, Snowman conducts an examination of the bitten soldier, who finds himself trapped in a nightmare. In this haunting vision, his body hovers, undergoing a grotesque transformation, while frenzied pigs surround him. As his body trembles with convulsions, Snowman administers an alternative serum to restore stability, visibly exhilarated by the prospect of creating the ultimate soldier. Valencia, however, registers her disapproval. Following their departure, the soldier's true nature becomes apparent as he reveals menacing red eyes. Meanwhile, Joel halts the vehicle, allowing Romeo a moment to relieve himself. However, he also retrieves his firearm, employing it to intimidate Romeo and forcefully remind him of their prior agreement. Romeo's insolent retort incites Joel's anger, leading to a physical confrontation where Joel strikes Romeo and pins him against his truck, extracting critical information about Henry's whereabouts. They reach a consensus to proceed to Henry's location. At the international airport in Mexico, Lilia arrives in a nun's attire, although Contreras and his partner easily discern her true identity. In a solitary moment, Contreras seizes her, delivering a stern warning against meddling with him, accompanied by inappropriate advances. Subsequently released, Lilia reports Contreras' harassment to the guards. As a consequence, they expel Contreras from the area, although his partner remains. Later at the laboratory, Snowman escorts Murdoch for a demonstration. Snowman issues a command to the soldier, instructing him to move his fingers. When the soldier disregards the command, Snowman resorts to an electroshock, compelling the soldier's compliance. Snowman proceeds with a demonstration of his newfound strength by providing the soldier with a tennis ball to obliterate. However, as the soldier shatters the ball, he inadvertently demolishes the table and spirals into a frenzy, assaulting Murdoch. Valencia intervenes, incapacitating the soldier with a gunshot. An ungrateful Snowman erupts in frustration, since the soldier represents his sole human specimen. He urgently requests the procurement of another, suggesting that the pigs may have generated more specimens by now. Back at the rehabilitation center, Alonzo begins to experience intense pain, attributed to the injury sustained during Dog's attack. While his subordinates tend to his wound, Lucas creates an illustration of the zombie that assailed Dog, recounting his observation of additional monsters on his drone screen. Alonzo instructs his men to embark on a mission to apprehend the individuals Lucas identified, suspecting them of espionage. Meanwhile, in Texas, Lilia arrives, and Henry collects her. He confiscates her phone and briefly obscures her vision before departing. However, upon reaching the road, he halts the car and retrieves his firearm. It transpires that Contreras' partner has been tailing them throughout. Henry unveils a plan wherein Lilia feigns unconsciousness, and when the cop stops his vehicle, Henry abruptly emerges, colliding with the cop's car using his vehicle. He forcibly pulls the cop from the vehicle and swiftly dispatches him, a gruesome act that chills Lilia to the bone. In the desert, Cruz has assembled her horde, comprised of the transformed immigrants, and her group confronts Becerral's team. Cruz launches an attack on Becerral, sinking her teeth into him. However, they both succumb to the influence of their prior bathroom encounter, and their instincts lead them to revel in the struggle. As evening descends, Lucas vigilantly watches over a slumbering Alonso when the sound of distant howling seizes his attention. Peering out the window, he glimpses a mysterious figure and seizes Alonso's firearm, venturing outside to confront the perceived threat. To his shock, the figure is revealed to be a zombified dog. Lucas hastily retreats indoors, yet Dog's encounter with the child rekindles memories of his role as a guardian. Determined not to harm Lucas, Dog elects to self-terminate. Meanwhile, two gang members continue their search for the elusive monsters, alerted by a noise. Despite a thorough inspection of the road, they find nothing and depart. Unbeknownst to them, it is a zombie calling out to his fellow undead, signaling a potential lead on Alonso's whereabouts. At the base, Murdoch emphasizes to Valencia the covert nature of their mission, underscoring the imperative of keeping it concealed from all. Valencia departs with 2 additional soldiers to embark on the zombie hunt. Upon reaching the desert, they spot 3 individuals on foot and give chase, presuming them to be zombies. However, these are illegal immigrants who start running, fearing pursuit by border police. The soldiers return to their truck, attempting to chase the fleeing immigrants but inadvertently colliding with an object instead. To their shock, the object turns out to be a zombie, launching an immediate attack. Valencia manages to save herself, but her comrades both sustain bites. She retreats to the truck alone in an attempt to escape. Meanwhile, Joel leverages his authority to secure a helicopter rental, coaxing the clerk to overlook Romeo's lack of a pilot's license. Nevertheless, they are unable to depart at the present hour, so they linger in the waiting room. During this time, Romeo experiences a flashback from 4 years ago, when he and Alonzo had concealed themselves in a motel. While Romeo was engrossed with his substances, Alonso ventured out and struck a deal with the police. Soon thereafter, the police arrive to apprehend Romeo, and as the memory fades, Romeo realizes that Joel is one of those officers. Enraged, Romeo contemplates exacting revenge on Joel, but the cop reminds him of their mutual need to collaborate in capturing Alonso. On the road, Henry and Lilia's journey is halted due to a car breakdown. Lilia advocates for using her phone, but Henry declines and suggests they proceed on foot. Suddenly, a passing car stops as the driver, a priest, perceives Lilia and, presuming her to be a genuine nun, offers them a ride. Back at Snowman's lab, he conducts an autopsy on the deceased zombie, uncovering the presence of a second heart within the soldier. Fueled by excitement at the prospect of a potential Nobel Prize, he meticulously documents everything through photographs. The following morning, members of the hunting party pause their journey to inspect something on the road and find themselves unexpectedly surrounded by a lone zombie and dog who remains alive. A skirmish ensues, resulting in one individual swiftly receiving a bite. His companion dispatches the zombie before engaging in a confrontation with Dog. After a protracted struggle, they manage to subdue Dog, confining him in the truck for transportation to the center. Meanwhile, Alonso peruses Lucas's drawings of various zombies. Upon his arrival, Alonso witnesses Dog's spasms, despite the loss of part of his head, leading them to surmise that this phenomenon is linked to the Apostle's new product. When Dog attempts to bite him, Alonso pacifies him by applying pressure to his brain. However, Lucas emerges and implores his father to cease harming Dog, asserting that there's still goodness within despite the growls. Alonso remains skeptical and instructs his men to confine Dog among the horses. In the desert, the bitten gang member awakens as a zombie and is encountered by the soldiers, who enlist him to lead them to the rehab center. Meanwhile, at the laboratory, Valencia provides a comprehensive report on her observations. Murdoch expresses incredulity at the zombie's ability to eliminate trained soldiers and concludes that it's time to exterminate them all. Snowman objects and pleads to preserve at least one zombie, threatening to ruin Murdoch's career, but Murdoch remains resolute in his decision, unafraid of Snowman's threats. Back at the center, Lucas attempts to establish a connection with Dog, but the zombie fails to comprehend him and attempts an attack. Lucas narrowly escapes and approaches Alonzo to persuade him that Dog is not merely an animal and is suffering. Alonso contemplates the possibility of ending Dog's life as an act of kindness. This leads Lucas to question whether Alonso also ended his mother's life to alleviate her suffering, and Alonso's silence serves as confirmation. In tears, Lucas flees, prompting Alonso to chase after him. After hearing his son's frustrated outcry over the loss of loved ones, Alonso gifts Lucas his firearm for self-protection. While the zombie soldiers draw nearer to the center, Joel and Romeo finally depart in a helicopter. Meanwhile, Lilia and Henry remain in the car with the priest, who overindulges in alcohol and makes advances toward Lilia. Henry disposes of the bottle, and they engage in a conversation about the concept of evil. Their dialogue is abruptly interrupted when a zombie emerges on the road, climbing atop the car. Henry recognizes him as one of the gang members and calls out his name. The zombie reaches through the driver's window and bites the priest. Lilia wrestles for control of the wheel, and the zombie successfully drags the priest through the window before the car careens off the road and crashes within seconds. The zombie continues to grapple with the priest and feeds on him. This gruesome scene is observed by a guard at the rehab center, who calls for assistance. Henry manages to extricate himself from the wreckage and opens fire, but the zombie lunges toward him. Just before a bite can occur, Lilia intervenes, shooting down the zombie. They rush to examine the priest, but sadly, he has already succumbed to his injuries. Just then, Alonzo arrives in a car and swiftly ushers them away from the gruesome scene. Upon returning to the center, Henry tends to Alonso's wound more attentively, while Lucas continues his drawings of the zombies. Lilia, eager for answers, presses Alonzo to explain the situation, and once again, he attributes the chaos to the influence of the Apostle's new product. However, Lucas astutely points out that every monster they've encountered so far appears to have been bitten, suggesting that the affliction is spreading akin to rabies. Alonso sternly silences him, leading to a frustrated Lucas declaring that his father deserves to die before storming out of the room. Meanwhile, Snowman, Murdoch, and their team arrive at the desert to locate the body of one of the soldiers that Valencia had lost the previous night. To their disappointment, they discover that the soldier perished due to an errant bullet and isn't infected, rendering the body useless for Snowman's research. As they continue to scour the area, they spot an abandoned vehicle nearby and decide to investigate. Back with Lucas, he retrieves 2 antiquated walkie-talkies from his bedroom and brings them to Dog, reminiscing about their past playtime with these toys. He tosses one to Dog, triggering memories that momentarily consume the zombie's consciousness. However, Dog abruptly destroys the toy and begins to wrestle against his restraints. With no other options, Lucas is compelled to pull the trigger and end Dog's suffering, causing him to have an emotional breakdown. Alonso, alarmed by the gunshots, rushes to console his frightened son. However, their brief moment of solace is abruptly shattered by the impending arrival of a helicopter. As the aircraft descends, the father and son are astonished to spot Becerril, who grabs a massive rock and hurls it at the helicopter, causing it to plummet and crash. With the helicopter wreckage emitting smoke and flames, the encroaching zombie horde lets out an eerie roar and converges on the center. Surprisingly, Becerril takes on the role of a tactician, issuing strategic orders to coordinate the zombies' assault. As the undead vault over the center's walls, the gang members emerge, armed and ready to confront the impending onslaught. They find it challenging to neutralize the zombies, unsure of where to target their shots. Simultaneously, Murdoch's group takes note of the helicopter crash and begins their journey toward the center. Meanwhile, Romeo and Joel, having emerged from the downed helicopter unscathed, stumble upon 3 zombies. Swiftly, they open fire, dispatching the priest and one of the soldiers, but the remaining gang member manages to evade them and escape. Inside the center, a crafty zombie successfully eludes the vigilant guards and infiltrates the premises. Henry, Alonso, Lilia, and Lucas frantically seek refuge further within the facility. In this tense moment, Lilia reveals a concealed second phone and starts recording as the monstrous soldier investigates Lucas's room. Hidden amidst a collection of teddy bears, Alonzo aims, determined to eliminate the intruder. However, the zombie spots him and forcefully yanks him out, slamming him against the wall. Alonzo manages to make the zombie release him by firing another shot, and they both crash through a glass door. As Lucas emerges from hiding and opens fire, another zombie approaches him, leaving him with no choice but to flee, abandoning his father. He seeks refuge under a table, but the pursuing zombie spots him regardless. Fortunately, Lilia locates them and skillfully eliminates the threat with precise shots. Upon closer examination of the fallen zombie's body, Lucas makes a startling discovery. The zombie possesses 2 hearts, akin to insects. Lilia captures photographs of this revelation. Alonzo joins them, and after chastising Lilia for her continuous recording, ushers them away from the scene. Elsewhere, Henry grapples with a zombie, employing a combination of shots, liquid smoke, and fire to overcome the undead assailant. He concludes the ordeal by striking the zombie with a chair, sending it plummeting from a wall. Zombified No-Balls finds himself entangled in a battle against his former comrades, as his mind is inundated with memories. However, this doesn't deter him from engaging in brutal combat. Cruz and Becerril, reminiscent of a contented couple, embark on a hunt together. Meanwhile, another soldier enters the house and confronts a gang member. The gang member cunningly leaves a grenade behind before retreating to the bathroom. The zombie carelessly discards the grenade and pursues the man, only to abruptly abandon the task upon Becerril's call to join them. Back with Alonso, Lilia, and Lucas, their escape through the back door is thwarted by yet another zombie. Alonso's initial shots fail to subdue the creature, leading to a skirmish. Lilia eventually delivers an accurate shot, providing Alonso with an opening to eliminate the zombie. Lucas observes this encounter closely and points out that the zombie's vulnerability lies in their cerebellum, not their entire brain. The trio decides to return indoors. Shortly thereafter, Joel and Romeo also enter the house, each venturing into different areas to cover more ground. Joel disregards the presence of a zombie corpse and opts to pilfer a wine bottle. Suddenly, he hears Alonzo and the others nearby and rushes into the room. Alonzo is poised to draw his weapon, but he hesitates when he witnesses Lucas sprinting toward Romeo for a hug. Before they can exchange words, Joel enters with a zombie in tow. Despite the tension, all 3 open fire simultaneously, swiftly dispatching the zombie. Now, locked in a Mexican standoff, the 3 men reluctantly agree to a temporary truce. While Becerril and Cruz stealthily continue their movements, Murdoch's convoy breaches the front gate, and the soldiers start advancing toward the house. Snowman repeatedly emphasizes his need for at least 1 living body. A zombified soldier emerges but disregards commands, prompting Valencia and her team to open fire despite Snowman's protests. Murdoch employs a megaphone in an attempt to communicate with those inside, causing Becerril and Cruz to pause, clutching smoke bombs. Inside the house, Henry and the sole surviving gang member join Alonso's group. The gang member confesses to being the Apostle's mole, but Alonso opts not to execute him, deeming that leaving him to the zombies would be a more fitting punishment. As Alonso's group strives to approach the exit, Cruz and Becerril toss a weapon through the front door and exit the house with raised arms, signifying surrender. Their horde follows suit. The soldiers encircle them, and Valencia establishes communication with the two intruders, discovering their demand for Alonso. Alonso overhears this and decides to lead his group out through an alternate exit, forbidding Joel from accompanying them. As the group escapes via the rear door, Joel returns to negotiate with the Apostle's mole. Outside, Becerril demonstrates eloquence, asserting that they are neither animals nor the deceased. He then signals, and the entire horde activates their smoke bombs. The soldiers open fire indiscriminately, prompting Snowman to caution them against harming the zombies. The zombies disperse and flee into the hills. Simultaneously, Alonso leads his group to the guard's post, unveiling the existence of an additional gang member. Together, they remove the tunnel lid to facilitate their escape. The entire group descends into the tunnel, with Alonso being the last to enter. Suddenly, a zombie pounces on him, biting his arm. Alonso dislodges the zombie with gunfire and enters the tunnel, swiftly closing it behind him. Keeping his injury hidden from the rest of the group, Alonso and his companions rush toward Mexico, oblivious to the fact that pigs lie in wait within the tunnel for their arrival.